Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. Welcome back to Feminine Roadmap Health and Wellness. And today my guest is Mee McCormick. She is a restaurateur. She's a farmer. She's a cook. She's the author of Pinewood Kitchen, a Southern Culinary Cure. And today we're going to be talking about Southern comfort food that's good for your microbiome, your gut health, and your immune system. Mee, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to write a cookbook that's good for the microbiome?
This is actually my second book. My first book was called My Kitchen Cure. I am someone that I had an ulceration, the total circumference of my small intestine, and I weighed about 89 pounds, and I could not eat or drink water. My mother suffered from Crohn's disease throughout the 80s and died in 1990. I watched my mother suffer and never get well. I then had two tiny babies 10 years ago, little kids, and I couldn't eat or drink, and was repeating my mother's path. And I looked into the face of my daughter and saw myself as a young child and decided I wanted to change the road that I was walking. I was the worst cook in America. I avoided the kitchen. I shopped via the frozen food pictures and boxes. If it was quick, fast, and said organic, it was in my cart. I found the kitchen to be annoying, distracting, and a waste of time. True. I thought it was just awful, but it was really because I wasn't raised with a mother in the kitchen teaching me how to cook. My mother was very sick, and she was a single parent, and when she wasn't hospitalized, she worked all the time, and when she was hospitalized, there was no food. So I'm born in the northern Appalachian Mountains. I live outside of Nashville, Tennessee, about 46 miles, on a working grass-fed, grass-finished cattle ranch and biodynamic farm. I raise grass-fed, grass-finished beef, pasture wood-raised pork, and biodynamic produce, all heirloom seeds and mushrooms in the woods for healing. But before all that, I was very sick and kitchen intimidated, and I found I had a large ulceration, the total circumference of my small intestine. So that meant that the intestines would rupture at any time, killing me. I wouldn't survive the final biopsy of a test to decide if it was small intestinal cancer or Crohn's disease. But what I did find out is that if I ate the right foods, I could participate in my life. I started off apprenticing with a macrobiotic counselor. 10, 12 years ago, those were the only people that were really talking about food and wellness. But macrobiotics is the basis of whole foods cooking, grains, sea vegetables. They were talking about fermented foods using miso paste, which is a probiotic paste, which is traditional to Japanese cooking. And so I just kind of got in my kitchen and learned the basics of macrobiotics. And within 2 weeks, I was eating a plate of whole food for the first time in 10 years. I then did macrobiotics for about a solid year and a half. And then I decided it was too rigid for me. There had to be a bigger point of view. I'm not a fundamentalist. I'm not a food fundamentalist. I'm someone that is always looking for as many possible paths that there are. And I know that we all have an individual path. I mean, we all have our own yellow brick road. And so once I was well, I then was splitting my time. My husband had a project in Los Angeles, between Los Angeles and the farm outside of Nashville in Pinewood, where we raised only cattle at the time. And I decided I wanted to go and enroll in a traditional culinary French and American classic program because I wanted to know what it was that we craved. I wanted to know how to make things and how to change it. I also have celiac disease. I have rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, Crohn's disease, and celiac, and psoriasis. So I have I feel like I'm just like the poster child for autoimmune, but I wanted to make food that would be rich and delicious as French and American cooking can be. So I enrolled in a program, and I kind of went in as a spy because they did not believe that you could actually change things. That is the root, in my opinion, of what's happening in our culinary, whatever you want to say, world is that it starts at the schools, and the schools are very rigid in their approach to cooking, and they find food allergies annoying because they don't understand it, and they don't understand a bigger point of view of cooking. So I kind of had to go in and be quiet because I did enroll in their program to learn from them. Wasn't my program, which was a huge blessing. And I would go home every day after each class and go home and remake the recipes because I couldn't taste anything. I had to, they weren't even accepting of the fact that I was allergic to half of the things we cooked, dairy being one of them. So I would make it really beautiful and fake tasting it and fake talking about it. And then I would go home, stop at the market on the way home, pick up ingredients that I knew could change it. But it taught me a lot. It taught me about changing out for gluten-free cooking. You know, you need a high protein to equal high gluten, right? So like a quinoa flour, and how to create my own flours. It taught me about fats and cooking with different fats and which nuts I would then create a cream from to equal the fat in whole fat or heavy whipping cream. So I was doing this before anybody was really doing this. I was just doing it so I could taste better food. And what was happening is I was getting well without any medication, which was a huge blessing because I had been so frail. I don't think I would have survived the side effects of some of the immune suppressants and the long-term antibiotics that changed the gut culture. I would have died. I would have never rebuilt the gut. So I was fermenting my own foods. I was already understanding that if I had a bacteria in the intestines, the only thing that was touching the lining of the intestines was food. And what foods, I was like ahead of them as far as the bacteria goes. I knew it was a wound and it had bacteria, and how did we heal it? So this is pre-probiotic, prebiotic conversations of food. And then through the process of getting well, I then wrote my first book, My Kitchen Cure, which was the story of my journey and my finding my own cure. And then that led me to becoming a contributor on a national talk show called The Better Show out in New York City. And I was on that show for a few seasons. And that was huge because I realized that that show's primary market was middle America, and they were definitely interested in what I was doing. And I was alone on the island before that. And I kept hearing this voice, the universe, God, whatever language you prefer, was telling me, no, this is confirmation. There are a million more me's out there. From there, that show ended after 8 seasons of being on the air, and my husband's project in Los Angeles ended, and I moved back to the farm outside of Nashville with my children. Now I was well, I was functioning, and my husband bought the old general store on the corner across from our farm. And he said, you have a restaurant, which I am the reluctant restaurateur. I didn't become a chef to be a famous chef and to, there was no ego in me becoming a chef. It was pure survival and service. And then to have a restaurant was my nightmare. I mean, I've been washing dishes in a kitchen since I was, 16 years old, working summer jobs, waitressing. And then I was a bartender in Los Angeles before I met my husband. And I'm from a tiny town. So for me, going back and living full-time in Pinewood was, I always thought I had to live in important places to do important things, or big places to do big things. And so there I was back in Pinewood, and he bought this old general store from the 1920s. It's been a part of the community since then. It's been everything from an ice cream shop, a Baptist church, an auto detail shop. It's an old general store. I mean, it's what you think. My cowboys ride up, tie their horses up, and come inside. So he bought it, and I kicked and screamed for a very long time because I was intimidated. I didn't think I was bright enough. I didn't think I was capable enough. I didn't think I was a leader. I had no idea how to run a line in a kitchen. I had no idea how to manage a team. And I had no idea in backcountry Tennessee, the way that I cooked, who in the world was going to eat it? I don't know. But I had, by then I had already been growing all the produce on the farm. We had already been as we say in Pinewood, we'd been had that. We'd been had our gardens and our orchard and our bees and our honey. So I had all this food, and it just made sense. It was like, here I am in this most rural county, and no one is eating fresh food that's coming from this land. No one in the county had the food grown in that community on their plates. And my beef was being sold in restaurants in New York City and Boston and in Nashville, but no one in the county was eating it. And no one was eating my tomatoes, my heirloom tomatoes, non-GMO. So it was sort of how things line out for us, is to serve in our own backyards first. And we remodeled it, and I hired a crew. And I mean, when I tell you I have been swimming, I have been swimming. And it has been a grand adventure because, you know, there are a lot of farm two-table restaurants, but they have this huge blessing that if they have the purveyor come to them and say, I have okra, how much would you like? For me, I have rows of okra, and I have to find a way to use all the okra and to not lose my behind in the cost of running and growing the farm. So it's a journey, and everyone now in my restaurant, it'll be 5 years, May 22nd, works on the farm and works in the restaurant.
That's an
That's a lot,
amazing
huh?
story. Yeah, but it's exciting to think about. You know, you started from scratch. This isn't something that you
Literally.
grew up thinking, I'm going to do this. It just kept coming
Mm-mm.
to you.
Yeah, there's no silver spoon over here. I mean, it was just like, you know, it was paper plates and styrofoam. But the thing is it's like, I think the most exciting thing about this book, My Pinewood Kitchen, is I love a couple things. I love that when we say yes and we have no expectation, where that yellow brick road will take us. And I love that now I have this second book and a big publishing house and a big team behind me and with me. And I get to really share what has happened in that journey in 5 years, which is this rural Southern community has become a hub and a community. And that people, having lived in Los Angeles and been on a show in New York City and returning to my sort of rural roots, um, people always say to me when I go to LA or to New York, they would say, oh, well, y'all need that kind. Well, they don't say y'all. They say, y'all, you need that. You people down there, whatever they say, y'all need that kind of food there. And I say, no, you need it too, boo. Like, the world needs this food. But what I love is that, right now, as our country is divided by red and blue states, Pinewood in my little kitchen is uniting everyone at the table. I hug everybody when they walk in that door. I serve them consciousness on a plate. I educate, and I do have hand cut fries, grass fed burgers, and I make a homemade umeboshi ketchup, which is in the book. And umeboshi vinegar I learned about through macrobiotics, which is an alkaline vinegar, and it aids in digestion. So at every level, and my farm bowl, Buddha bowl, has hijiki seaweed in the quinoa. And so at every level, there is a rising up that's happening at the table. And what Pinewood has taught me is that people really want to eat better, but they want to go to a place that they're comfortable in to try it. We want to be in a familiar, warm, inviting setting that says, here, come on in, try it. I make the most amazing fried chicken. It's gluten-free. Nobody knows. But if they come in for my fried chicken and then they try one of my microbiome soups, we'll get to that microbiome conversation, and the server educates them, and it's all local people that work with me, then there's this thing that happens. It's like we're raising them up and they're raising us up. They're telling us what you're doing matters. It's this beautiful thing that's happened in my life. And then that whole thing that happened with me learning macrobiotics, vegan, raw, I did that whole journey too. And then French American classics, and it all coming together in this sort of unexpected place at this unexpected table is really a magic I never saw coming. And it's my wellness, it's my wellness brought me to serve others, especially right now where everyone is down and out. We're down and out financially, we're down and out socially, we're down and out physically. And if we are fighting this virus or someone in our family, we're scared to pieces. But so we're all on the floor right now is how I look at it. But when we come up off of that floor, I always say, what are you going to do with it? So for me, McCormick, coming up off that floor with my awful, horrible struggles health-wise, it was horrible as sick as I was. I have always felt like now that I'm up off the floor, I'm not messing around, and I'm busy. Even in this quarantine, I'm busy. I am making things happen because I'm not wasting any time. It's too fast. It's a thief.
Mhm, mhm. So let's talk about microbiomes. Why don't you give the audience a kind of a tutorial on what it is that you're talking about?
Sure. So the microbiome is basically the bacteria that's located in our small and large intestine. We also have bacteria in our stomach. And our digestive tract is everywhere from starting here where we chew, saliva, enzymes, goes all the way down into the stomach. People don't understand the gallbladder, the liver, the pancreas. It's all part of the digestive tract. That is a digestive situation. GI doctors aren't just, diabetes affects the pancreas, which is part of digestion. So in the digestive tract, you have bacteria, particularly in the small, large intestine. And these bacterias are what break down our food and what controls how our body reacts to inflammation and diseases and viruses. And so when you eat a balanced diet and a predominantly heavily plant-based diet, you are feeding the positive bacteria in the gut. I call them the gut homies because they've got your back. Okay. You need a gut homie and you need to support the gut homies. So the gut homies are the bacterias that are supportive to us. And then you need to feed them. And they thrive off of all different types of plants. And everyone, what I love going back to the beginning of this conversation is the yellow brick road is individual. So your microbiome is not my microbiome. Your microbiome is based off of the environment you live in and the foods that you eat and the level of stress that you carry, because our cortisol levels affect our bacteria. They wipe out some of the good stuff. They fuel some of the unhealthy stuff. So your excess, so like my cattle on the farm, now I'm coming into high season, high grass season on the farm, and I mob graze. So I take care of my land. I'm very mindful of my land and of my soil and of the environment. So it's funny, I was raised on styrofoam and paper plates. Um, but what that means is that we move our cattle and livestock are moved sometimes 3 times a day because each pasture has a different nutritional profile. So that means that the nutritional profile of each pasture is either it's got different levels of natural nitrates, it's got more sunlight, it's got more rain. So each grass has a different nutrient base. So when you're mob grazing, you're moving your cattle all the time to make sure that they're eating a variety. This is a big deal. So that whole concept when I was sick was like, oh, that makes sense. Way before the microbiome talk. I need a variety. So when people say eat seasonal, that's how you keep a variety. That's how you keep a balanced microbiome. The more diversity in the microbiome, the healthier you are. And so these bacteria, what they feed off of, then create short chain fatty acids in our bodies. And these short chain fatty acids control our disease. They keep the inflammation out. They keep things going. They keep viruses. I mean, that bacteria is just managing constantly. So it isn't a way of eating that you do it for 60 days and you're done. This is how you live. And the freedom is that it shows us that there's not one way. So for some people being completely vegan, they do better. Maybe they don't have enzymes to digest animal, or maybe it's a spiritual and emotional choice, which I support as well. Or maybe their liver doesn't break down fats as well. Maybe they, so there's vegan works for them, but for other people, they can have certain meats, like particularly dark chicken meat. It feeds certain bacteria in the microbiome. Now, if you haven't had an excess of that, right, then you're going to have that. There's a wonderful test called Biome, Biome. I'm a huge fan. One day I'd love to meet the owner of the company, but it's a great test because, and there will be many more besides Biome popping up now, but Biome is they take a stool sample and then they break it down and they'll send you back in a report all the foods that are your superfoods to influence your bacteria, the foods that you need to eat regularly to influence certain bacteria, and then the foods to avoid because maybe you have an excess of what that food feeds. You dig it? And then in 90 days, you change it. And I've been doing that since I discovered it. I've been on this whole program too, because I'm always like, I got to up my game. I've got to stay well. So in June, my rheumatoid arthritis numbers were through the roof again. I was like 32, which is high. And the doctor said, "How are you moving around? How are you not in so much pain?" And I had achy going on, but I was so busy just working again, grinding, that I wasn't focusing on the fact that this hurt and these hurt and that hurt and my hips hurt. So I was like, okay, I got to get back in my kitchen. And so for me, there are particular bacterias that people have in the intestines in the microbiome that people with MS and rheumatoid arthritis have that are higher than other people. So for example, there's a bacteria called Privitella, and people see my so silly. You do know I'm silly, right? So people that they've done all kinds of studies, and they've found people with MS or RA may have this bacteria in high levels. It's not a bad bacteria. See, all the gut homies, they're about being your homie. So for me, maybe having a high level bacteria load of this particular bacteria is harmful, but for you, it's fine when it's in balance, but it gets out of balance. So I'm always careful to not make because we want to go, these are the bad bacteria, but it doesn't work like that. It's the dance of the colony, of the community of gut homies. So for me, I was like, okay, I need to fuel a bacteria called Akkermansia. So Akkermansia is located in the lining, the mucosal lining of the intestine. And it's a very small colony, but what it does is it is like a throw down, fight the inflammation gut homie. And what it loves to eat is pomegranate and whole cranberries. And not whole cranberries that are covered in sugar, but like whole, real, fresh cranberries. But who wants to eat that? So I was like, I got to get these cranberries in. What am I going to do? Smoothie. So I buy a bag of frozen whole cranberries and a little bit of pomegranate juice because there's less sugar in it. You always want to watch your sugar. And then a greens powder or greens in there, whatever, and blueberries because of the level of antioxidants in that. And then I make my own coconut milk kefir and coconut milk yogurt, which is in my book. And I put a scoop of that in there. So I've got the probiotic, which is the coconut yogurt. And then I've got what it eats: cranberries, blueberries. Yeah, plant food. So you see these probiotic bacteria feed off of these plants. So you're always doing this dance to feed these bacteria. Anyways, I went back to the doctor 4 months later, and my RA numbers went down to 12, which is undetectable. It's like not even RA. I mean, it's fine. And I have no pain, which is huge. And so it's this dance, but the thrilling part is that everyone has their own path. So somebody might be paleo and that works for them. Somebody might be vegan, it works for them. Somebody might be keto, it works for them. But what's going to happen is all those things are going to kind of go away as these types of tests become more and more accessible. Doctors begin to use them. Medicine really gets involved in them. Insurance companies support them because it's proactive. I mean, after what's happening right now, the insurance companies and the medical facilities are like, I hope that after this, everyone goes, homies, you got to take care of yourself. What you cooking? What you eating? What you put in your mouth? Did you cook it? Did you grow it? Did you buy it? Where'd you buy it? What's in it? I hope the question becomes what's in it and what's on your plate. And we're inspired and encouraged to take better care of ourselves. Because when you look at this coronavirus right now and you see the places that it's really impacting humans, it's in the places where chronic disease, obesity, metabolic syndrome, all of these things that we can influence ourselves are at a heightened level. And for me, it hits home because it's hitting where I live and where I love, which is the South.
Mm.
Was that a lot? I'm sorry. It's a lot of information.
No, please keep going because that's interesting because you do have regional food habits. You have regional food tendencies, right?
Yeah. I mean, and you have regional, and then now, but those tendencies are kind of all over the country. I
Mhm.
think you see in California, people are there's just more social influence to look better, take care, go outside. You don't have long winters. You go to the Northeast, you have obesity issues up there too, but it's, in the South, for whatever reason, we love our sweet tea and we love We love a lot of things. And so for me with this book, it was like, how do I take these recipes and inspire people to eat more plants? And I mean, there's a lot of meat in my book, but each recipe is broken down. This can be vegan if you do this. Like I make collard greens with, I think I used hog jowl, but then also there's a recipe for collard greens with coconut bacon because coconut bacon is delicious. So if I can inspire people to just start adding in more plants and thinking about how much bacon did I eat this week? You know, it's that mindfulness. It's the mindfulness of the livestock that you're eating. And I raise livestock. I mean, I'm a big time rancher, and my husband is probably like, "Don't say that," but I'm saying that. Like, we have to be mindful of the life force, you know, and how much we're taking and how much we're giving back. You know, we have to be mindful of our excesses. We have to be mindful of all the things because we want to be here. And maybe this virus is going to inspire people to be as inspired as I am to be here. You know, I'm just sucking the fat off of the bone, as I like to say. I'm living on this planet because my time is borrowed. You know, I'm one of those high risk people that you read about in the news. I'm her. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I get this virus, will I survive it? I have no idea. I'm doing all the things right now, man. I'm taking like mushrooms. I wrote a whole section in the book on mushrooms and the fungi. Oh, if you can see this documentary called The Fantastic Fungi. Oh my gosh. It is the best documentary I saw all year. One of the most important things I watched, period.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a theater in Nashville to see it. Now it's for download, but they really explain the value of mushrooms. So mushrooms are antiviral. Mushrooms are loaded with vitamin D. So again, my vitamin D levels when I started this journey 10 years ago were 9. I had a number of 9. You want 60. You want a minimum of like 40 to traditional doctors. Heck, they might even take 20 as decent. Functional medicine doctors like it higher. But I had a 9, which meant I was just walking around with no vitamin D in my body. And now my vitamin D level is almost 70. And I don't, it's mushrooms. I eat them. I right now, shiitake antiviral, maitake has interferon in it. My interferon is what's in chemotherapy. Um, reishi mushroom capsules are powerful. Turkey tail is immune boosting. I take that every day. Chaga, what an influence chaga has on cancer. You know, chaga's the king and reishi's the queen of the mushrooms. Lion's mane, if you take anything and you have any type of inflammation in your body, autoimmune disease, lion's mane mushroom. There are all kinds of studies that I've cited in my book that have proven that lion's mane mushroom, after just I think 72 hours, the inflammation in the intestines goes down. I mean, mushrooms, they're not a plant and they're not an animal. They're their own species and they're the homies. I mean, that's my kick right now. So what am I doing? I'm doing that. And in my restaurant right now, I'm making elderberry syrup right there on the farm, cranking it out. And I'm making an elderberry barbecue sauce that is delicious. Put it on your tofu, put it on your chicken. I mean, I make tofu. I smoke tofu in Pinewood. The first time we rolled out the smoker and they were like, what are you bringing out? I was like, we're going to smoke barbecue tofu too. They were like, what? I was like, somebody will try it. Because see, I also have a whole theory on soy. I don't eat a ton of it, but I think that if you don't have a situation that interacts poorly with soy, fermented soy tempeh is fantastic in, you know, small amounts. Tamari, I use coconut aminos, but again, I don't have an excess. You know what happens to us? We get a kick. We're like, chicken, I'm only eating chicken. I read kale, and then they only eat kale. Or, you know, I'm going to have tofu, and it's only tofu. And then you've created this imbalance, not just in the microbiome, but in the entire body. And that balance then affects the outside world of us, which is the environment. I'm always looking at all the things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's
It's like
interesting.
all the things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true, right? We get on kicks.
Mhm.
We get some magazine or some, you know, article will tell you this is the thing you need to eat. And then a whole bunch of people go running over to that thing.
And then they're on it for like 6 months and they do create an imbalance. And, you know, it's like, it's even me with, I just talked about whole cranberries. So the good news is I done these cranberry smoothies for about 12 weeks straight, and then I don't do them. And right now in particular, I can't get cranberries, so I'm not doing them. I did find a bag of whole frozen cherries. Cherry and cherry juice is fantastic for people with arthritis. I mean, I attest to it. I'll be achy and I'll put a little bit of cherries in my smoothie or tart cherry juice in there. And it worked for me. It works. Not that I'm a doctor. It works for me. And so, pure cacao. Let's talk about anxiety in the gut. That's the other thing. So I own a place. I'm a partners in a place called Integrative Life Center on Music Row in Nashville with my husband, Lee McCormick, and my partner, Ryan Chapman, who's also my partner in Pinewood. And this is an addiction. My husband started the Recovery Ranch on the farm, and a bunch of other places in Sausalito. He helped set up Altamira, and in Malibu, the Canyon with Fred Siegel. And this is the other thing that I think helped me when it was time to change my food. I had watched so many people go through treatment for drugs, alcohol, depression, eating disorder, anxiety disorders. And I'd watched them really like step up and change. And luckily I never had addiction in that way. And I have no idea how I avoid severe depression because it's been a rough ride, but I'm blessed. But I watched people really change. And so when it came to me changing, I was like, well, it is doable. And understanding and I think that's why Pinewood is so special, because I understand the emotional component in changing our food. I understand the way we judge ourselves. We judge ourselves the way we feed our children. We judge ourselves on what's in our refrigerator, what's in our pantry, and what we really crave secretly. If we break down and have a Coca-Cola, we don't want anyone to see us. And it's like, you know what? I sell Coca-Cola in my restaurant because it's choice. We have free will. And again, I'm not a fundamentalist. I'm really a person that's saying, just do your best and try this.
Mm-hmm. It's more of a holistic approach as opposed to a more textbook, check off these boxes and then you're good.
Yeah, I mean, and it's your will. I mean, I was dying. I am a miracle right now that I'm still here. I never, ever thought 10 years later I'd still be alive. Never. I was told the day I was born, my intestines were collapsed, and I was baptized that day by a priest. They said, she's not going to make it. And then I was rushed to a hospital in the mountains, and I was the first baby to have the surgery and survive it that I had on my intestines. I then had my first bowel obstruction when I was 24. I don't know how I made it through that. And I've had probably about 35 bowel obstructions, which is horrific. I had 2 babies and did not even know I was in labor because I lived with so much pain. I understand chronic pain. I understand fear. I understand fear of dying. I understand the fear of living. When I had my first baby, they said, we need to operate on you. You're going to lose the baby. And if you don't, you're probably going to die. And I had the baby. And then the second baby, same thing, and then I went into anaphylactic shock after the second baby because I was allergic to iron transfusions. And I have been in and out of the hospital more times than I hope to ever, I hope my children never see it. And I get it all. So I also get the judgment, but I think that when we hit that place that we want to be here, we will participate. And that's when you have the checklist, like I did. I was like, okay, I got to eat this. Oh, I got to drink that. And I did, so it's the levels of what you want to do and how you want to do it. But it's not, those are your levels. They're not Mee McCormick's. You know what I mean? Like I'm not here to judge another human. I'm here to cheer you on for what you can do. I'm here to say, buck up, buttercup, you got it. And there's a lot of freedom in being able to be that person, because then I don't have any expectations. I just get to love you.
Yeah. But what I hear you saying is you're supportive without the judgment. You're educating and loving and mentoring, but you're allowing the other person to have that sense of, what am I willing to do?
Oh, it's your path. It's your yellow brick road. It is your life. It is your journey. If you come by my restaurant and all you'll ever try is my homemade ketchup, I'm going to hug you even more. You know, it's like if you're a mama and you have children and they won't try it and you're exhausted and you work 8 jobs like Mee McCormick, I got you. You know, I got you. I'm here for you. I'm cheering you on. I'm loving you. I think the worst feeling is to be alone on an island. And when I was started, embarked on this journey, I didn't know anybody that was doing food the way I was doing it. I didn't know, I didn't have anyone to talk to, and everybody said I was just batshit crazy. Sorry, you can bleep that or keep it. I said keep it. But I mean, even my own mother-in-law was, good Lord, what are you doing? What are those children? You're not giving them cow milk? Well, I'm severely allergic to cow milk, as both of my children. My youngest daughter was covered in eczema. I got her off of it. It's gone. Now, do they have cow milk now? Sure, if they go somewhere, they have cow milk. If they want ice cream and they go somewhere, they can have ice cream. They have to make their decisions, you know. But in my house, I have a vegan milk. I'm celiac. So in my house, we can't have gluten. We can't have bread. Because if I eat that, if that bread is left on the counter and it didn't get wiped off and I touch it, I'm sick for 3 days, severely sick, like dying on the floor. And I think that that brought me that level of compassion. Pinewood and my kitchen, Pinewood Kitchen, has, what it's really about is it's the new hospitality, what I'm doing. It's this level of empathy, right? So people drive hours to eat there. We never saw that coming. And they drive hours to eat there because they have food allergies or they have a granddaughter with food allergies and they all want to eat at the same table. And so my kitchen is wide open. It's in the middle of the restaurant. My chefs and my servers, you have a direct relation. They'll say, and the place is itty bitty. They'll say, table 4, she's celiac. And then the cooks see her. They see her face. They see her granddaughter. They see the child who has the peanut allergy. And they go, oh, okay, I got it. And then so we have this process of taking off gloves and doing things already. We have stations. We have a gluten-free fryer. If you have alpha-gal allergy, which is the tick bite, which is huge, the Lone Star tick bite, huge in rural America and spreading. They go, I got it. We keep things alpha-gal. If you have we had a lady this week that can't eat out anywhere because her list is so intense. And they come all the time and they hand one of us the list and we go into the kitchen and we create food for them. You know, my specials are special because a lot of times I'll go to eat and I'll say, what can I have? And I get a choice of 1 or 2 things. They're usually pretty crappy and they're way underwhelming and they're expensive. And, you know, I don't want to complain. And I would say that, how often do I get sick if I eat out? 90% of the time, I'm going to get sick. I mean, I was just at a beautiful restaurant right before this happened in Nashville, one of the nicest, most high-end restaurants in the city. And I said to the server, I was in a private room having a private dinner gathering, and I said to the server, listen, I have celiac, and I'm always apologizing, by the way. I'm sorry, I have celiac. Like, why am I doing that? That's a whole other blog post. I'm sorry, I have celiac. Can I eat any of this? And so she goes to the chef and she asks the chef. She comes back and she goes, oh, listen, actually, you can have this, 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 this. Excellent. I said, are you sure? Because I will miss out on my life for 3 whole days. I will wish that there was something they could do for me in the hospital. And then I will be sick for a week on liquids. So please, is it gluten-free 100%? Don't go back and ride your kitchen. If you don't have a protocol, I'm cool. Tell me, I'll order a glass of wine, I'll have hot tea, I'll have a glass of water. I'm just here for the company when I go out now. She says, no, 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 you're fine. You're fine. He said, you're fine. So I made a plate. I take a bite of these veggies and I'm on like my 3rd bite and she walks by and she says, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. That one had gluten in it. I got it wrong. And then I go home and I wait to die on the floor because it's poison to me. So I have that. Then I take these stories back to my kitchen. My kitchen sees me miss work for 3 days. They FaceTime me and see me just get deeply ill. And then they go, okay. But you know, what's happening is I use the word inclusivity a lot. and an inclusive kitchen and an inclusive table. And on another level, because everything about life has layers, right? So for me, another layer is spreading and using the word inclusive at the table. It has tentacles of what it means, right? And it influences and changes things, and it goes into people's perception, and it creates the world in a better space. So I think that's important too. Pinewood is the goodness. It's the good stuff. I'm really running a kind kitchen.
I love that. Thinking about food as kindness, kindness to yourself, kindness to your
Hmm.
family. I think for myself, I don't have any food allergies or anything, but I don't love to eat. In other words, I'm not the person who's like, when's my next meal? I would rather just be doing what I'm doing and eat when I feel like it, but my body
Hmm.
doesn't allow me to go too far. I'll start to get a
Right.
headache, or I'll just literally become like, there goes my energy, right? So I think a lot of people have different relationships with food. It's not always an obsessive relationship with food. It could just be it's not that it doesn't taste good, but finding that kindness and that healthy relationship with
It's
food.
about the relationship with food. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it's totally the relationship with food. And it really starts with the intention of the kitchen. For me, it starts with the intention of the seeds we plant on the farm. We plant them, we water them, we grow them. We cheer in the winter in our greenhouses when we see them coming. And then we wash them, and we're so excited to bring them to the kitchen. And I'm starting, my list of food is coming in. Asparagus is coming in droves, which is amazing. I got an email this morning saying, wow, the asparagus is like the okra. I mean, we have so much okra on that farm. So it's 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 exciting. And then it comes into the kitchen. And when I say I run a kind kitchen, the energy of the cooks are everything. I
Mhm.
will tell people to walk off the line if they're crabby. I don't I'm changing the way that kitchens are run. They are very high anxiety situations. You're trying to chop as fast, cook as fast, plate as fast, serve as fast so that the customer is happy because they want it fast. And there's a whole thing on ticket time and money. Look at all the things I've learned in 5 years, girl. We went from I didn't know how to do it to I know how to create it. How you doing? But there's this whole thing that I don't even play into. I just will stand in the middle of my restaurant and go, we are making everything from scratch, from your ketchup when it runs out, your burgers are hand patted, those fries are cut to order, you know, everything is chopped fresh. There's no microwaves, and you're getting real food. And people want it. So they come with that intention that, you know what, I'm going to wait 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to get my food. Because just like when you go to your mama's house and you sit down at the table, you got to wait 20 minutes, sometimes an hour. But what that does is it takes the pressure off of the kitchen. Because if we live in an anxious world and the food, we go into a restaurant where we want to just relax, and the kitchen and the food you're now eating is anxious food, how
Mm.
did it serve you? How did that serve you? I mean, the energy of how you prepare things and is what you're putting into them. And I don't have any bullies in my kitchen. I don't tolerate egos because I'm not an egomaniac chef. I mean, that's not what I'm doing. That's not why we're there. The team works together. We pay everyone makes a really great living wage. So my servers don't get $2; they get a living wage, and then all the tips are split. And then what that did is I wanted to create the best job in the county. I
Mhm.
wanted people to know if they worked at that Pinewood Kitchen, they had the best job in the county. And so how we're doing it now through the coronavirus quarantine is my team is all fed from the farm and the restaurant. They don't go to grocery stores. They eat in-house. They take groceries home from the farm and the restaurant, and they're not going out into the world. And then they're able to go into the kitchen and they're able to cook, and we know they aren't sick, they're not going to contaminate any food. And then the program that I run, Integrative Life Center, I run the food service for, that Ryan and Lee run the business. I don't run that business. They want it to sound like that. But the food service that I provide for Integrative Life Center in Nashville, those clients are all sequestered too. And so they're getting this gorgeous farm food with all this microbiome goodness, and they don't have to worry, is anybody in my kitchen sick?
Mm-hmm.
And then, for our pickup service that we do, we're just applying the way that we run that consciousness of a food allergy kitchen to, okay, the food has been picked up. You hand that pen to that person that's signing the ticket. That's a clean pen that's been washed. They sign it, and then that pen gets sterilized. Those are new gloves. I mean, there's a whole thing, which is, again, it's inclusivity, it's consciousness, it's mindfulness. And then there's this love and this care for your community. And then your community will pour back in, because my community pours back into Pinewood. This is kind of amazing. And you know what? This isn't my book. This is our book. This is my book, y'all.
I
It's
love it.
our book. It's the book of the kitchen. It's when I went to shoot it, so there were conversations. Do we go into a studio? Do I go to New York and shoot the photos inside with a person in New York or Nashville? What do we do as food stylists and a photographer? And we do the whole thing. And then I was talking to Michael Bromley Jr., who ended up shooting the photos. He's my chef, one of my chefs, and my kitchen manager. And he went to school for photography, but he hasn't used that skill in a long time. And he said, me, I could shoot it. And I remember thinking, I had a budget. I mean, we had a whole thing with the publisher. And then I said, let's do it. And then I found out that it was on Target.com. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, Target, wait a minute. Is this a good idea that we're doing? This book is everywhere. Whole Foods, Target, Books A Million, you name it, it's everywhere. And then I was like, wait a minute. Is this a good idea? I've never directed a photo shoot. And can Michael really shoot this? But it was another thing that was, like you said, from scratch. This kitchen is a scratch kitchen. That farm is a scratch kitchen. I'm a scratch person. I mean, I've scratched my way up from the bottom organically. And so we shot this book, and it is beautiful. In 2 days, we made 120 recipes. We shot 100 photographs. We plated them, and they were all shot in Pinewood, and it's gorgeous. And I thought, that's like another level of this story. Like, the whole team was involved in making them beautiful, plating it. But they're really recipes that we serve there. So it was kind of like a no-brainer. Like, when you read this book, you go into my world of Pinewood. You're going to know those people. I talk about them. You're going to know Miss Tina and her fry pies that are in the book. I guess it's relationship again. I think that's what I love the most. And when I leave this earth, I've led a very privileged life. It doesn't mean I haven't had poverty and loss, but extremely privileged. And I think what I'll value the most is the people that I've loved and have loved me. The people that have loved me. I mean, there's like nothing better than being loved. It's the good stuff.
So now, if anybody wanted to get in contact with you and your business, your website, where can they contact you?
They should go to Pinewood Kitchen and mercantile.com. Just go to that site, and there's an email there, and you can email. You can find me at Mee McCormick, MEEEE, 3 E's, McCormick on Instagram, and me, Tracy McCormick, on Facebook, and Mee McCormick, my personal, on Facebook, and the Pinewood Kitchen and Mercantile on Facebook. I mean, I am a social media girl. I do all the things. And then I'm on YouTube too, me, Tracy McCormick. So you can find me, and I respond to every email personally. And I'm going to do, with this book launch, I'm going to do Zoom cooking classes. And I'm an Amazon influencer as well. So that means I have a shopping page on Amazon. And there's a recipe. If you buy the book, you're going to send me just photo of the book or receipt or whatever it works. Email me your Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million receipt. And then you'll get information for the Zoom cooking class, and you'll get a link to go to the Amazon influencer page and order all your ingredients. And my first recipe is a pantry recipe, because now I look at all fresh foods as a luxury item, because we can't run to the grocery store. Yeah. So I thought, let's do a microbiome healthy black bean soup, because black beans are linked to people that eat black beans and white navy beans, and then bean eaters have an 81% healthier lining of their intestines, which is huge because black beans and white beans support the microbiome and they support the bacteria that keeps our lining preventing leaky gut from collapsing. So I thought, well, we'll do a cooking class together. We're all quarantined. It'll be fun. You can have a glass of wine or a glass of water, and we'll make some good soup, and I'll just talk about all the things that you want to know.
That sounds like so much fun.
Yes.
I've been on a cooking binge. I love to cook, but with everybody home, it's more motivating to cook.
Oh, yeah, it's great. And it's a great time to change your kids' eating habits. This is the time to change your eating habits. This is the time to get mindful. You have time to cook. You have time to, you can go for walks, you know. You don't walk the mall. You're going to go out and walk around your block, go out in your yard and do things. And this is the time to cook with your kids, with your family, and to not buy the potato chips. I love potato chips. But this is the time to, you know, change what you're eating, change your patterns and create new patterns. I mean, slowing down is a blessing on some level. We've got to find the silver lining.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, you know, come at it with kindness.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And kindness
you
to
can be
yourself.
relentless, I guess, but it might be good to start with kindness so that you don't discourage yourself.
Yeah. Be nice to you. If you try something, I even say in my book, if you try a recipe and you don't like it, fine. But you tried it. And then you can tweak it. You can change it. You can take a piece of that recipe and what you learned and how you made it and make something else, you know. And my way, there is no just my way. It's your way. You know, every recipe in this book shows you it can be dairy free, gluten free, vegan. Like I even have a vegan beef stroganoff. I have a beef stroganoff with ground beef because it's less expensive and you usually have it in the freezer in your house, or you can do it vegan and then all the tips. I mean, that's what we have to do. We have to be inclusive and we have to think about everybody else. And then maybe that one person that said they would never eat anything vegan, they're going to go, I'm going to try this stroganoff, you know, or maybe not. I'm fine with that too.
I love
Try the
it.
beef. It's in there.
I love me some beef. I'm not going to lie. I'm a
No,
big
you'll
fan
love
of
my
beef.
stroganoff.
Yes. Well, Mee, I want to thank you so much for sharing your passion. I know you're a very busy woman, even during this quarantine, and I thank you for sharing such great information because that's what Feminine Roadmap Health and Wellness is about, is finding those people that have a resource for people who are looking for answers for their health and their wellness. And I feel like we've just scratched the surface of the wealth of
Mhm.
information that you are, and you really packed a lot in. And so I really thank you so much for taking the time to do that.
Thank you. Well, I love it. I love being here. I love talking to you, and I hope you stay well in your body. And we'll get you
Yes.
a book. We'll get
Oh,
you a book.
I can't wait because I love to cook. Cookbooks are kind of one of those things. I'm one of those people that loves cookbooks, like buys them when
Mhm.
I go on vacation because I just think it's neat
Ah,
to have regional recipes. I'm one of those people. But friends, please subscribe down below. I'm going to have links to me and her cookbook, and think about food as kindness. I love that idea. I hope
mhm.
that this time with me today has been impactful for you and that there was something in it. I know there was something in it for you. And so I know Mee encourages each one of you to take your own yellow brick road. Find the things that
Mhm.
work for you. Be willing to try something new. And it's okay if you don't like it, but you don't know till you try it. So let's take our health seriously. Let's take the time to be kind to ourselves and see food as fuel, see it as medicine.
Mhm.
Right now is an excellent time to be thinking about food as medicine, not just an obligation. So enjoy the food that you eat. Smile at your plate, smile at yourself, give yourself credit for the good choices that you're making. And please, please, please share this video. Share it with people who struggle to find food and recipes that support their health, especially those in your life that have autoimmune diseases. This is an incredible resource. So please be generous and share this video today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Take care.